Let's get started with the second half here. I mentioned we're going to look more closely at some individual differences and perceptions about aspects of the field. And we're going to start with developing future leaders with Yan Jin from Virginia Commonwealth. Yan?
Thank you and good afternoon. Hope you all enjoyed the coffee break and enjoyed the session so far. Okay, well, my name is Yan Jin. I'm from the Virginia Commonwealth University. Well, I helped conduct the survey and also the interviews in the Chinese-speaking countries. As you might remember before the coffee break, Juan mentioned they identified key issues and also the core skills and capabilities that people are looking for and leaders all agreed upon as very important in addressing core issues. So here, right in this room, we have this wonderful group of practitioners, communication management leaders, educators. You all have served as mentors for so many numerous students and junior practitioners. So while you are sitting here sipping your coffee, you might wonder, well, so what do the survey results tell us as mentors? What does this point us to guiding, mentoring, developing future leaders? So, this beautiful quote here vividly illustrates the core ingredients of those important development aspects for future leader. So just a quick sample here, ingredients including listening, real listening, conflict management, and innovation, and really open and willing to try something new, something different, and also have superb emotional intelligence in dealing with complicated situations and issues. So the future is so dynamic, uncertain, sometimes very noisy, but we must be ready altogether to cross over. So in this section of the survey, we asked our leaders this question: what's your view? How do you view the importance of different approaches that we should take to develop future leaders? Okay? So we measure this importance by asking our leaders to evaluate on a 7-point scale from 1 to 7, indicating the relative importance each leader see as the most important action we should take developing future leader. Okay? So again, in terms of meaning of the number, if the number is about 5 or above, it tells us, yes, this action or approach for developing future leaders is important. If it's 6 or above, hey, even better. That tells us, yes, this action, this approach is very important. Okay? So the first or the most important development action item among our leaders is to manage the changes. Okay? So this is really a great reflection of the changes happening around us in our profession, in our organization, and also in the global market. Right? As we know, any meaningful changes happen to an organization has to begin with effective internal communication. And this internal communication, this change of management, really kind of affects the cycle time for any changes internally to be processed, understood, and adopted. So the view from our leaders, why they value this one so much, is because this priority of changing is only going to get even more urgent. And there are two other more traditional, softer skills, such as listening and such as managing conflicts, are also rated as very important among our leaders here. Okay? There are other important approaches in developing future leaders. So again, here, measurement is emphasized here again. It's very important. And also the knowledge and understanding of business and culture is very critical. Also, as practitioners, even though we usually help our organization manage stress, conflicts, however, when it comes to our own life, our work-life conflict, right? Sometimes we're a little off balance. So the leaders, what this sermon for our future leaders is like, hey guys, you have to learn how to manage stress, how to balance work and life conflict, as well as how to develop understanding the role of emotion. Some of you might wonder, why emotions? Actually, according to a recent Plex Center funded research, we identified that emotional leadership is actually one of the core attributes, particularly empathy, the core attributes for effective PR leadership. It really means twofolds simultaneously. On one hand, for an effective PR leader with high EQ, you are really good at detecting, feeling, sensing, assessing, evaluating emotions expressed in the workplace, regardless it's from your employee, from your top management, or your clients. At the same time, you are also very good at expressing, communicating your own feelings, emotions with those key audiences in the workplace in order to express those feelings constructively, identify common ground in communication, even in times of conflicts and crises. There are four, we call that systematic approaches. Those are important as in professional action. However, relatively compared to other approaches, they tend to be viewed as less important. So these less important results, according to our survey, those items are including accreditation or licensing, a core global education program, urging professional associations to jointly tackle the leadership issue together, and firmly punishing any ethical violators. And again, these are important. However, our survey results show that comparatively, relatively, they are not as important as the previous items we went through. Further on, we are wondering, so are these 12 approaches related to each other? If so, what are their associations, relationship among those items? Okay? So our factor analysis rendered or generated two factors. The first one represents what we call self-development approaches. This including improving listening skills, enhancing emotional intelligence, and conflict management skills, and increasing understanding of different culture, and strengthening the skills to manage changes, and enhancing the skill to cope with, deal with stress as associated with your work and life. Okay? And this group really represents the individual component of development. Okay? So this has been sometimes, unfortunately, labeled as soft skills. But it really reflects what Jen mentioned earlier in the model, the self-insight, self-awareness. Unless we are aware who we are, what we are doing, we can't really do the best job in helping, guiding our organization in achieving its communication goals. Okay? So just give you a sense how strong this factor is. The eigenvalue for this factor is about 5. The alpha is about 0.80, and this factor alone explains more than 41% of the variance in the sample. It means that this factor is really, really important and strong. The second factor represents what we call systematic development approaches. So for this group, kind of different from the individual approach in previous slide, is that this one really requires a kind of joint effort from the structure in terms of educational and professional structure. Items including requiring professional accreditation, developing a global PR curriculum, imposing tough punishment on ethical violators, developing better measures, urging professionals to work together, tackle issues, let's do it together, and also strengthening the business economic component in our education. So this group have different flavor. Okay, so this one talk about the best resolution to address those core values in the industry, adding economic, adding culture components. So practitioners and educators, we have to work together to get this done. And this is also a strong factor. Again, some indicators. This one, the eigenvalue is about 1, and alpha among the items is about 0.82. And this item alone explains about 10% of the variance in our sample. So these two factors together, again, meaning the individual development factor and also the systematic one, together they explain more than 50% of the variance in our sample. Again, this tells us that this is really, really good outcome. Okay? So you may wonder, okay, so what are the guidance, what are the paths our participants pointed out to us? Okay? So from our survey participants, they pointed out really two focal technical issues here. Okay, well, thank you, Kevin. You does magic, as always. Okay, so we have a little conflict resolved quickly, very effective leadership here. So our leader pointed out that there are two really equipments. We call them software or individual skills and hardware, more professional educational structure type of skills. So in terms of the software, Okay? So it including increasing the reflection and self-insights, and improve interpersonal skills and culture understanding, and really creating this great awareness of what? Ourselves, our emotions in workplace, and also different culture at a global scale. Speaking of hardware, this is more about improving the measurement skills and standards, strengthening our ethical framework, as well as increasing the knowledge of business, of culture in general. Okay? So if you remember what Jen talked about, the 7-dimension integrated leadership model, these two advices, core advice, or equipments, hardware, software, really relates so essentially with 3 dimensions that Jen presented in earlier session. So just have some kind of quick take points from here is that very important for future development of our leaders, self-insight and awareness, okay, number 1. Number 2, ethical orientation and corresponding core values and standards. Number 3, a system for communication, knowledge management, okay? And then you might still have some question in your mind in terms of, okay, so how about demographics? Are there any differences we detected from our sample regarding maybe people coming from different places, different background might view the future development a little bit differently? The short answer is yes. And here I'm going to give you some examples of interesting findings we found from our sample, our study. Okay? So for example, we found that the most experienced practitioners, meaning with more than 20 years of experience, they rated listening skills and culture understanding is the most important and much more important compared to other groups and their rating. Okay? And secondly, in contrast, the least experienced practitioners in our sample, meaning less than 11 years in the PR field, they rated significantly important across all the other approaches, other than the one we mentioned, such as listening and culture. Speaking of geographic differences, practitioners from Latin American countries, they gave the highest mean scores across 7 out of the 12 approaches we examined earlier. And almost all countries except Germany, they rated that change management skills is the most important approach in developing future leader. However, even in Germany, folks rated this one only second only to conflict management. So still, across the board, this is very important. Okay? We also found that the lower level practitioners, and they kind of across the board, they noticed that all those approaches are really important and relatively more important than how other groups evaluated, which means that for those lower level practitioners, for them to move forward for their career development, they really need the help from us, from educators, from practitioners to strengthen those 12 aspects of their skills and capabilities. And last but not least, we also found that, speaking of gender difference, women across the board rated that while all those 12 approaches are much more important than the way or the view expressed by male practitioners. So that's interesting and worth further exploring. Okay? So in summary, our findings on development of future leaders provide insights on what approaches are perceived by our PR leaders across the globe as more effective than others. One of the most striking findings from our perspective is that there is a consistency across different regions and countries, is that we really need to strengthen, keep developing the soft skills of our future leaders in order to cope with and deal with such dynamic and fast evolving environment our profession is facing altogether. So in the following presentation, my colleague, Baiba Pedersen, she's going to focus on individual perceptions and also beliefs about leaders and practice. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Baiba Pedersen. I'm a native of Latvia, currently with Zayed University in Dubai. I'm very grateful to Drs. Bruce Berger and Brian Reber for inviting me to join this study. It has been such a great opportunity. Thank you. Together with Brian, I conducted the leadership survey in 2 Baltic states, Estonia and Latvia. I would like to begin my presentation with a quote by Georgianne Geyer, an American journalist. Would women leaders wield power differently? Would they be more humane? Would they perhaps even usher in some gleaming Renaissance era? And would men accept them, now that we have this veritable club of women leaders across the globe? We can begin to answer those questions, but the answers are no simpler than the questions themselves. Like Ms. Geyer in this quote, our research study inquired about issues such as wielding power, ways that gender shapes leadership, institutional support for leadership, and the future of our profession. Although our study provided a wealth of information to our questions, it also uncovered many other areas for further investigation. In the next few minutes, I will present the 3rd major section of our study on participants' individual beliefs about leadership and leaders, gender, organizations, and the profession. The section included 12 statements which participants were asked to rate from 1, strongly disagree, to 7, agree to a great extent. The first 3 statements were concerned with self-perceptions about leaders and leadership. Many in the survey consider themselves to be leaders and aspire to leadership. Other studies conducted by researchers at the Planck Center reveal that desire and passion to lead is one of the characteristics of excellent leadership. It is also important to note that men in the study rated each of the 2 statements significantly higher than women. The 3rd statement shows the significant role the leaders and mentors have on the followers' learning about leadership. Professionals with more than 20 years experience rated importance of role models and mentors significantly higher than their less experienced colleagues. Countries with the highest mean score for this statement included the United Kingdom, the United States, China, and India. South Korea and Brazil had the lowest scores. The second set of statements centered on gender and leadership. Participants indicated strongly that men and women can be equally capable leaders. However, many women and men prefer to work for male rather than female leaders. This preference was expressed most strongly in Spain, United Kingdom, and Germany, and far less in South Korea, Russia, and China. Neither women nor men agreed strongly that women have better interpersonal communication skills than men. But when we looked at the main differences between male and female participants, we found that men believed that women possess stronger interpersonal communication skills than men. The third group of statements inquired about the public relations professionals' perceptions about the organizations for which they worked. Participants did not rate highly the performance of top communication leaders in their organizations. Our further analysis of answers to this statement revealed that the leaders rated themselves significantly higher than their followers. Let me give you the numbers. The mean score for public relations leaders participating in this study was 5.32, whereas professionals one level below the top leaders rated the top leaders' performance at 4.28, and those of 2 or more levels below the top leader at 4.14. Statistically, these differences in assessment between top leaders and their followers are Grand Canyon size across all countries and regions. The next statement about two-way communication yielded similar results. The mean score for top leaders was significantly higher than that for their followers. The top leaders were at 5.05, professionals one level below at 4.48, and professionals 2 or more levels removed at 4.35. Scores across countries and regions were rather consistent. Third statement on the CEO's understanding about the value of public relations also revealed different responses from professionals of various reporting levels. Top leaders' perceptions about the CEO's understanding were significantly higher than those of their followers. The mean scores for this statement followed a similar pattern. Top leaders at 5.41, professionals one level removed at 5.11, and professionals removed 2 or more levels were at 4.86. Ratings for this statement were the highest in India, Germany, and the United Kingdom, and the lowest in Brazil. The final 3 statements were concerned with perceptions about leaders and the profession. The first 2 statements draw a below average mean scores, 3.73 and 3.44. Practitioners lean toward believing that leadership in public relations is not different from leadership in other fields, and that communication skills may be more important than leadership skills. Younger, less experienced professionals agreed significantly more with the 2 statements than their more experienced colleagues. Mean scores were consistently low in the surveyed countries and regions. The third statement is about the future of our profession. Survey participants expressed optimism about the future of the profession, which continues to grow and expand in many countries of the world. Younger practitioners, those below the age of 36, were significantly more positive about the future than their more experienced colleagues. India, Mexico, and Brazil gave the highest ratings for the statement, while Spain, South Korea, and Germany gave it lower ratings. This slide explains how we developed our leadership index. The excellence theory, the predominant approach to public relations, proposes 3 variables that facilitate the excellent practice of public relations and an organizational culture for communication. These 3 statements on this slide correspond to the 3 variables: excellent public relations leadership, organizational support for and practice of 2-way communication, and the CEO's understanding about the value of public relations and support for public relations. I want to note that these variables were also used in developing and testing the organizational culture and structure dimension in Dr. Juan Meng's integrated leadership model that was presented earlier today. In order to understand the conditions for leadership on a country and region basis, we summed the mean scores for the 3 statements listed on this slide for each of the 12 countries and regions. Prior to doing so, we removed those participants who classified themselves as self-employed or other, because in those cases we could not examine the organizational factors. This slide shows the resulting mean scores for each country and region. We call these scores the summated leadership index. The higher the mean, the better and richer is the organizational condition for leadership. From all the countries and regions included in this study, India had the highest mean score of 16.37, significantly higher than most other countries. Mexico was second highest at 15.22 and significantly higher than the lowest 3 countries. Brazil had the lowest mean score of 13.02, significantly lower than most other countries, and South Korea at 13.41 was significantly lower than Germany, Mexico, the United States, and India. As we can see, None of the countries came close to the highest possible mean score of 21. Our data reveal that the average mean is 14.50. These findings suggest that there is clearly room for leadership improvement in every country and every region. In sum, there are quite a number of demographic differences in this section of the study, too many to detail. For us, the chief areas of interest for further investigation are differing gender perspectives, the divide between leaders and followers, and some fairly consistent cultural differences. Thank you for listening, and let me introduce my colleague, Dr. Elina Erzikova, who will speak next. She is with Central Michigan University and will speak on leadership in the BRIC countries, Brazil, Russia, India, and China.
Good afternoon. As Baiba said, my name is Elina Yerzikova. I am Alabama graduate. Dr. Berger, thank you once again. And I teach public relations at Central Michigan University. I'm very happy to be here. I worked and lived, maybe, for many years in Russia, and I conducted this survey in Russia. And so this section of the report is very intriguing to me. BRIC, or Brazil, Russia, India, and China, are considered to be similar in the degree of economic development and quite different in terms of cultures. What about public relations? How do these similarities, differences affect PR practices and particularly conceptualization of professional leadership? This is the focus of my presentation. As we know, BRIC countries are made up of Brazil, Russia, India, and China. But according to Economy Watch, if we categorize them by importance, it would actually be CIRB, C-I-R-B. China, India, Russia, and Brazil. However, just doesn't sound as sexy, does it? And we know sexiness sells. And that's why masters of the financial universe at Goldman Sachs make big bucks, because it was Goldman Sachs that came up with the BRIC grouping, and that acronym has stuck. Collectively, the top 10 economies in the world are a huge economic and population engine. Collectively, they account for about 70% of world gross domestic product and nearly 50% of the world's people. Many organizations are especially interested in developments and opportunities in the BRIC countries. These culturally diverse nations share two significant features. They have vast populations and enormous economic power, as indicated in this list of top 10 world economies. We felt that including public relations professionals and leaders in the BRIC countries in our survey was thus important. And 901 professionals participating in our research in these four countries. Brazil, 303, Russia, 215, India, 140, and China, 143 participants. In the future, these countries will be even more powerful economic engines and crucial players in the global economy, as indicated in the projections by Euromonitor International. The BRIC nations will be 4 of the 7 largest economies in the world by 2020, and that's not very far into the future. So, what are the characteristics and perceptions of public relations professionals we surveyed in the BRIC countries? After all, the history of the profession is quite different in each of these markets, as are important cultural, political, and economic structures in which practice occurs. Here's some demographics for BRIC professionals versus overall demographics for the larger study. Overall, BRIC participants are younger, less experienced, and work at lower levels in their organizations. They also hold relatively fewer graduate degrees than do others in the overall study. In addition, they are predominantly female, and more than 1/3 of them actually majored in public relations in universities, far more than others in the overall study, which is 16%. Participants in the BRIC countries also rated the 3 most important issues somewhat differently than did others. The quest to find and retain top public relations talent was the top issue in India and China, and issue number 2 in Russia. In addition, measurement was the top issue in Brazil and the number 2 issue in India. The 4 countries employ more or less similar strategies and tactics to manage these top issues, as indicated here. All use common approaches to issues of management, information flow, and digital media. China and India offer greater job autonomy and superior benefits to try to attract top talent to their markets. On the other hand, with respect to the development of future communication leaders, BRIC participants share very similar views with all other participants. Developing change management skills was the top approach in each of the 4 countries and in the overall study. All 4 countries also listed listening skills and conflict management skills as top approaches, number 2 and number 3. And conflict management skills were listed number 2 by Brazil and Russia. From our perspective, the emphasis on the top 3 development needs in the BRIC countries and in all other countries and regions is among the most consistent findings in this study. Some individual perceptions. Data suggest Indian respondents perceive themselves more strongly as PR leaders than did other participants. Russian respondents demonstrated the least self-confidence. Indian participants also seem to be most ambitious when it comes to a desire to be a PR leader. Chinese respondents appeared to be most humble. But overall, practitioners in these countries have a strong desire to be leaders in the field. Data suggest participants from Brazil are the strongest believers in equal capability of men and women in PR leadership roles. However, all scores are high, and this was another very consistent finding across all geographies in the study. Brazilian and Indian participants appeared to be most willing to work for a male leader, while Russian and Chinese respondents seem to be less enthusiastic about such a perspective. Russian participants appeared to be more skeptical about their PR leaders' performances compared to other participants, while Indian respondents' mean score was higher than the all countries' participants' mean rating. Compared to others, respondents from India believe strongest that their organizations practice two-way communication. Once again, Indian participants seem to be most positive about their leaders, in this case CEOs, while Brazilian respondents appear to be the least positive about their bosses' understandings of public relations. The Brazil mean was among the lowest means for all countries and regions. Indian participants, once again, also revealed themselves as the most optimistic regarding the future of PR in their country. Chinese respondents seemed the least positive. Yet all means, even Russia's, are higher than the mean rating for all countries. Now we know where the most optimistic PR practitioners reside. Looking at the summated leadership index discussed earlier, the conditions for excellent leadership in the field vary widely among the 4 countries. India has the highest mean score, while Brazil and Russia are significantly lower. Brazil's ratings of the presence of two-way communication in their organizations and CEO understanding of the value of public relations were rated at the lowest among all 12 countries' regions in this study. Russian participants rated the performance of the highest level communication professional and the presence of two-way communication very low. But to make the point again, there is substantial room for improvement in leadership and the conditions for leadership in organizations in every country and region. Economically similar and culturally different, the BRIC countries provide us with examples of PR practices in non-Western settings. Similar in one sense and diverse in another, these practices puzzle, intrigue, and excite even native researchers. Needless to say, Westerners who are exploring terra incognita with enthusiasm and can-do attitude. Thank you. And Marco and Bruce will now present the concluding section of our report.
Good afternoon. I am Marco Herrera, and with my colleague Rebecca Arevalo, I was responsible for the leadership study and interviews in Mexico. In this part, I'm going to share I have the pleasure to share with Bruce this presentation. Our cross-cultural study captured perception and insight of nearly 4,500 global practitioners in 23 countries. We believe the findings are rich, complex, and challenging. They underscore a profound transition now underway for the profession and for its leaders. Excellent leadership has always been difficult. It will be more so in the future. Based on the data, we identified 10 themes and storylines about leadership in the field. Each grows out of key research findings, and all are accompanied by important questions. We believe the profession must successfully engage the themes. Now, we are going to present and count down the 10 themes as our way of expressing what we believe the finding means. Like Henry Ford, we think the attitudes we adopt have a lot to do with what we do or don't do in our personal and work lives. We feel that way about the future of our profession. The future for our profession has never been brighter, but there's some work to do. Headline number 10. The first part is all news, but the emerging story is how this transformation affects leaders and their roles as information decision makers and interpreters. Nearly 2/3 of global participants rated 4 issues as more important in the field. Number 1, managing the speed and flow of information. Number 2, managing the digital revolution and rise of social media, improving the measurements of communications. And number 4, dealing with fast-moving and seamless, endless crises. Organizations are racing to revise our creative strategies to manage this revolution and struggling at the same time to develop reliable and meaningful measures. Some countries are moving faster than others, but leaders everywhere reflect on how this revolution transformed their vision, roles, and how they lead. Are virtual leaders real leaders? Most leaders reshape their roles to become more astute decisions makers about what isn't important, the vast information flow and its corresponding opportunity flows, and must they then translate relevant information and opportunities into a specific meaning and meaningful action in their organizations? Bruce?
Headline number 9. Ron Alsop's book, The Trophy Kids Grow Up, is one of several, in fact, that describes the first wave of the millennial generation and the values, expectations, and changes that they bring to the workplace. Our survey provides quite a bit of evidence, actually, of generational differences. Younger professionals, and I'm speaking about those under the age of 35, rank professional image, measurement as significantly more important issues. They give high ratings to the need to develop talent. They give significantly lower ratings to the actual presence of two-way communication in their organizations, and they want more. They are more positive about the future of the profession, and they rate most of the 12 approaches to developing future leaders significantly higher than all other age groups. This challenging me generation already affects the workplace and is the talent pool for tomorrow. A recent blog by one millennial reminded us that they now account for 24% of the upcoming voters in the presidential election. So, what do these perhaps more reluctant leaders mean for the future of our profession?
Headline number 8. This seems intuitive, but today there has been little empirical evidence in the communications literature to support this claim. The study provides some evidence. Leaders do draw from or rely more on different leadership dimensions to tackle diverse issues, and leadership is tested most sharply during crisis. Are the best leaders the ones who possess rich multidimensional capabilities? Are they the ones who identify and include other professionals with such dimensions in their thinking and planning? Can particular dimensions be honored into managers and future leaders? Most intriguing to us was the fact that the strongest dimension of leadership for measurements was vision. Having a powerful vision for what measurement could mean to organization. Who thinks about vision for measurement? Many think about measurement as crucial tools or standards, but where does the vision come in?
Headline number 7. Everybody in this room and everybody in practice has an opinion about what constitutes excellent leadership. We all possess what Peter Senge called a mental model for excellent leaders. In our mind, we know what an excellent leader looks like and does, and how that leader behaves. This study, in fact, tested a previously developed 7-dimensional public relations leadership model that integrated what historically had been treated more distinctly, skills, traits, behaviors, and cultural and structural factors into an integrated model. Factor analysis of these dimensions suggests that the model may be a reliable public relations leadership scale in the country's study. Now, more work needs to be done to refine and test the model, but think about it for a moment. It provides a kind of intriguing framework for examining leadership development, planning, education, training, and evaluation in the field and in the classroom. So, who will lead the way in practice here? And is this an area, in fact, where competitive professional associations and societies might actually come together to work on this issue of leadership development? Truly, what's more important, than the development of future leaders in our profession.
Headline number 6. The salience and balance of media coverage still rules measurements approachment in most surveyed countries. Yet the measurement issue is rated as the third issue among 10 big issues in the field. What's going on here? Given the sharply increased focus on measurement standards by several groups and organizations today, it seems like the more reliable and meaningful measurements approach and standards and the moment of truth are close at hand. Who will embrace these approaches and use measurements to build competitive advantage for the organization and profession? Who gets left behind? Who will have the vision? And who will seize the opportunity to deliver measurements, knowledge, and skill to those countries in Latin America and Asia whose hunger for it, according to our survey?
Yes, digital media skills are certainly crucial, and so are enhanced measurement skills. But practitioners said very consistently across all geographies in the studies that the mastery of so-called soft skills are what we need going forward into this uncertain future. Better listening, cultural sensitivity, emotional intelligence, change management skills, and so forth. They're crucial for us. More widely publicized systemic changes such as accreditation, enforcement of ethical codes, and so forth are also important. But survey results suggested that they run second to soft skills. Now, aren't soft skills, for example, crucial to successful implementation of the model for corporate communication that's proposed by the Arthur W. Page Society? This model calls for activating organizational character and engaging individual customers, investors, employees, and others as advocates for shared beliefs and actions. Well, aren't listening skills, cultural sensitivity, change management skills vital in doing just that? To develop these and other capabilities, leaders need to spend more time, or more of that scarce resource, time, in self-reflection. Another consistent finding. Self-reflection is not a passive activity, but it's the pathway to greater self-awareness, which is the basis, in fact, for improving leadership skills and connecting more fully with followers.
Headline number 4. Comparative studies can enrich our understanding of cultural similarities and differences, and some were highlighted in our global survey. The 3 Latin American countries, Brazil, Chile, and Mexico, for example, rated the top issues more of the less the same. The 3 countries also gave the highest mean rating to all 7 leadership dimensions and 7 of the 12 approaches to leader development. On the other hand, professionals in the German-speaking countries and the UK generally gave the lowest rating to many issues, leadership dimensions and development approaches. What do these differences mean? Without more research, we don't know. Perhaps they're due to other demographics. Latin American participants were more often females, younger, and working in lower levels than the German and English professionals. The professional story and state of practice also varies in each region. Or perhaps the difference are due to differing educational experience and professional cultures forgive extremely high or low evaluations. Are culturally sensitive leaders better at managing change and conflict, inspiring followers, and building trust among professionals in their global organizations?
When Betsy Plank entered the profession in the 1940s, as Gary suggested earlier, the field was more than 95% male. Today it's as much as 70% female, and women are ascending in greater numbers to leadership position in the profession. Our survey provides a good deal of evidence that women and men view leadership and the possibilities and processes of becoming a leader somewhat differently. In the study, women rated significantly higher than men 8 of the 10 top issues, all 7 of the leadership dimensions, and all 12 approaches to future leader development. They also were more optimistic about the future of the profession in most countries. Men, on the other hand, perceive themselves significantly more often than did women to actually be leaders in the field and to want to be a leader in the profession. They also rated significantly higher than women the performance of the communication leader, the presence of two-way communication in their organization, and the extent to which the CEO understood the value of communication. Well, what does this mean? What does this mean? Are these alternate perceptions driven by differing socialization experiences? Or by the frequency and quality of self-reflection that men and women engage in? Does the historically more difficult role or journey to the top for women make the role and responsibilities somehow different? Previous qualitative research has shed some light on this area, but more research is definitely needed.
Headline number 2. More? Okay. Headline number 2. Leaders and followers hold different views about the 10 most important issues. How future leaders should be developed and their extent to which their organizations support two-way communications and share power. Their views diverge even more regarding the quality of leadership performance. Leaders often rate their own performance higher than they do followers, but that divide between the two in this study in Grand Canyon size. Many participants also rated the organizational CEO's understanding of communications higher than they rated the performance of the communication leader. Does this suggest that more leaders must spend more time listening to followers and self-reflecting? We are on the guilt of confirmation bias, the idea that we look evidence to support our beliefs and point of views, rather than evidence that challenge our beliefs or suggest alternative approaches. This is persuasive, but also Wall Street Journal's article noted this summer. One of the alarming things about confirmation bias is that it gets worse with greater expertise and with higher rank. Thus, specialists and leaders become more confident in their own decisions and require less and less positive evidence to support their views, and more evidence to change their views or practices.
The transformation that's driven by the powerful engine of digital media has attracted great attention, and our survey certainly confirms the significance of this change globally. But other profound changes also are occurring, and they too will affect who leads in the future and where the profession goes. Our survey captured the growing need for professionals to possess and improve soft skills. Meeting this challenge, in fact, may entail important changes in education or professional development programs that have typically focused more on boosting core technical and analytical skills. The continued feminization of the profession, the somewhat different views of leadership held by men and women, the generational differences, the sharp divide between leaders and followers really underscore a transformation that goes beyond the digital. It is an interrelated set of deep changes that we've described very briefly here today that infuses practice today and shapes it for tomorrow everywhere. Excellent leaders in the future will understand these changes. They will help manage them. They will act on them. To encourage that development, more leadership research needs to be done, and even more, the taken for granted assumptions of leadership in the field need to be dropped in the favor of some very rich and ongoing dialogue about leadership. Now, this concludes the formal presentation of our data this afternoon. We have touched on some highlights from our findings. There is much more. There is much more in the quantitative data set, and there is even more in the qualitative interviews that we have completed. They probe culture and day-to-day leadership practices much more deeply. We look forward to your suggestions about next steps in research. This is not an end. This is a beginning, we hope, for more research into global communication management. And we also would be very interested in your insights and suggestions about the development of future leaders, which is critically important to us. So we're going to close right now. We're going to take another 15-minute coffee break, resume at 3:05 when we'll have a set of distinguished panelists who react to and talk about the findings this afternoon.